going on, guys? Hope everybody's doing well and having a great day. In this video, we're going up to Hay River in the Northwestern Territory of Canada. Sits parallel to Anchorage, Alaska at the 61-degree north latitude. We're going to primarily focus on this area as they are trying to recover from a recent catastrophic flooding event that forced the displacement of 3,500 people in this area. And I have some first-hand photos and video footage from this area. Tanya, who lives in Hay River, shares some incredible Northern Light videos with me that I share with you guys. Lives in Hay River and was forced to evacuate, and she and her family were out of their home for 5 days, not knowing if they were even going to have a home to return to. Several people did not have homes to return to after this huge flooding event. In this afternoon's video, I'm going to do 2 videos today. We'll get to Earth Days and Schumann Resonance and the Yellowstone supervolcano, but right now I want to focus on Hay River and the data that Tanya shared with me. Hay River is one of the few rivers on Earth that flows south to north. It flows up into the Great Slave Lake. And the photos you're going to see here were sent in by Tanya, who lives in Hay River and who was directly impacted by the flood. She sent in a copy of the declaration of a state of local emergency in the Hay River area. Again, 3,500 people, Vail Island and the people of Hay River were forced to evacuate. Here's a video from the banks of the Hay River sent in by Tanya. You can see the large ice chunks, ice flow moving through the Hay River. Again, this is moving from south to north, one of the few rivers on Earth that flows to the north. Here's a still image of the large chunks of ice creating a ice jam. Notice the bridge up here. I'll show you where this photo was taken. There's a bridge right here in this area. Tanya was standing right here as she took that photo, you see, and there's that bridge that spans across the Hay River. At the time, the ice was extremely jammed up and the flooding was beginning to set in and expand over the banks of the Hay River, ultimately leading to the evacuation of 3,500 people. You can see a couple of large boats here displaced by these very heavy chunks of ice, and in some cases these chunks of ice are very large. Here's another look of the floodwaters starting to overtake a building and some silos here, railroad tanker cars and icebergs swimming around the silos and the train. You can see a car over here underwater, quite possibly 2 cars underwater. There's a convenience store right up there and water going through the tree line here over the banks of the Hay River. There's a river in town. This isn't supposed to be here. That's actually a road, but it turned into a river. Here's yet another example of a road turned into a river at Hay River. That's why people were forced to evacuate. Here's a boat that's way out of bounds, got carried off by the floodwaters. You can see some homes here that are being approached by floodwaters and large chunks of ice. Again, these are first-hand photos right from the area sent in by Tanya. Here's a car that's starting to get submerged under the floodwaters. Homes here being approached by floodwaters. Something underwater right there. Not sure what that is. The streets completely covered with water. This is a video when they were allowed to return home, and you can see that the water is now off the roadways and the large chunks of ice that are sitting now along the banks idly next to the Hay River. And some of these chunks of ice are just absolutely huge. Look at that. You know how much that thing weighs? And if it runs into a house or a car or something like that, it's going to do a lot of damage. Here's a tree that was almost pushed over by heavy chunks of ice, and a lot of the trees were completely pushed over, flattened by the heavy chunks of ice that were creating a large ice jam. More trees here taken out by the large chunks of ice that were just overwhelming the Hay River, forcing again the evacuation of 3,500 people. And here we're coming up on another area, a huge pile of these large chunks of ice piled up next to the road. Look at that. Get a load of that, would you? She says in this video she's never seen anything like this, and she's lived here her whole life. First time they were forced to evacuate, again, they were out of their home for 5 days, not sure if they were going to have a home to return to. Some of the people they know did not have homes to return to. The flood damage was quite extensive. You can see more trees there. just simply flattened, chewed up by the huge chunks of ice that made up this ice jam in the large Hay River. The Hay River is not small by any means. More large chunks of ice here. Power was out to most of the area for an extended period of time. Of course, floodwaters forced the evacuation of thousands. They went to Yellowknife. Some people went to Alberta. They were kind of scattered out all over the area up there, wherever there was room and evacuation centers. They're coming up here on another road. You're going to see a couple of barges that were displaced by the flood waters. The waters have kind of receded now that they're allowed to come back home, but there's 1, 2, quite possibly 3 barges way over here next to some sort of a bridge. They look like they're completely out of place. And more water here that got up pretty high next to that building. It's kind of elevated. That may have saved it from the flood waters. More water here, still receding as, again, they were allowed to come home after a 5-day evacuation. There's a couple of barges here that look like they're lost, completely out of place up here next to the road. I don't think they should be there, but they were allowed to come back home. They were gone Sunday through Thursday, and luckily their home was far enough away from the river where it stayed intact and was not damaged. But some of these homes and buildings that were right close to the river here took on extensive damage, and in some cases were a total loss due to the epic flooding event once again up in Hay River at the 61-degree north latitude. And going from the Hay River area, which is at the 61-degree latitude, down closer to the equator in Bangkok, Thailand, which is at the 13-degree north latitude, where they've been experiencing heavy rains this week, especially Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Article over here at the Bangkok Post showing a photo of cars sitting in probably a foot and a half of water on a main road in Bangkok early Wednesday morning as they had a 10-hour deluge, a downpour of rain that again lasted for just over 10 hours. Heavy rains flooded many roads in the greater Bangkok area. Thank you for the photos, Tanya. Greatly appreciate that. If you guys have any photos you'd like to share, you can send those to reports at MrMBB333.com. Thanks for watching. Have a super day and be safe out there.